Hi there, and welcome to the Kincardine Summer Music Festival. My name is Drew Jureka, and I'm here with the wonderful guitarist Nathan Hiltz.
How you doing?
And it's really a pleasure to be here with you today, despite the fact that we can't be together in person. I've had the pleasure of playing this festival before in person, and so I can imagine some of you as we do this from my home in Toronto and Nathan's home in a different part of Toronto. We're coming to you via the magic of the internet. We're actually going to be playing together simultaneously, uh, even though we're in different locations, over the internet, which is something that we have found that we are able to do with a program called Jam Kazam. So we're actually using this thing to do it, and then we're also recording ourselves. So the magnificent work of Victoria Ye will be pulling it all together so that you see something that sounds and looks great. And it's really, really, really nice to be here. It's been a weird time for artists, as I'm sure you know. And so we appreciate that the Kincardine Summer Music Festival is reaching out to us and giving us an opportunity to play for you and also to play with one another. I've been missing Nathan as well and all my other musical compatriots. So we are going to play a bunch of different things for you, but we're going to play a program that's largely inspired by Joe Venuti and Eddie Lang. Joe Venuti, probably my best violin role model in the jazz milieu, was a Italian immigrant who grew up in Philadelphia playing classical music, and along with his longtime friend Joe and Eddie Lang, played together when they were young kids, and they continued to play together for Eddie's entire life until he died prematurely in his 30s. But they played together in the Paul Whiteman Band, which was a very famous pop band, and they were involved in a bunch of different projects. Eddie Lang played with Bessie Smith and a bunch of great blues musicians.
Bing Crosby as well.
Yeah, that's right. Both of them played with Bing Crosby. In fact, Bing Crosby and Joe Venuti had a really long friendship. So we're going to play some music that is of that era, and we're also going to play a couple of compositions by Eddie Lang and Joe Venuti, and we're going to play a couple of compositions, one composition of ours inspired by those guys. But we're going to start with this beautiful standard called Yesterdays. Nice. Well, that's
Nice.
very enjoyable.
Yeah.
One of the really nice things about playing together at the same time, which is something that I really miss these days, I am able to make music, but I'm doing it in my studio. And one of the nice things is that we just called that tune. In fact, like right before we started recording, and I don't know that I've ever played it with Nathan before.
I don't think
And
I've ever
so-
played it in G minor either.
Well, there you go. So we're actually getting the thrill of being able to create something a kind of on the spot for you. So we're gonna follow that with a piece that was written by Joe Venuti and Eddie Lang, and this is a piece. Actually, the only video that you can find, if you're interested in looking these guys up, of Venuti and Lang is as part of a film called The King of Jazz that Paul Whiteman had made about himself. Now think about that for a second. So that is him calling himself the King of Jazz, which I think you could make a very good argument that that is completely not the case. But in any case, there is great footage of him introducing the band, and he shines a flashlight on each member of the band, and at some point he shines a flashlight on Joe Venuti and Eddie Lang, and they play a shortened version of this tune. This tune is called Wildcat. And actually, Nathan suggested this. This is a song that that I learned when I was just starting my career, and I was playing with a wonderful guitarist and musician by the name of Jeff Healy, also known as a blues musician. I played in his band, the Jazz Wizards, for many years, and Jeff was a real inspiration to me in a lot of ways. He encouraged me, and he found music that he thought I should learn, and he was a really a positive influence on me in a lot of ways. But one of the ways was that he was a major record collector. In fact, you can see behind me I have part of Jeff's record collection here. But Jeff was a huge fan of Joe Venuti and Eddie Lang, especially Eddie Lang's guitar playing. And so when I joined his band and he had a violinist, he immediately said, "You need to learn this tune, Wildcat." So I learned it. He gave me a recording, which he had printed from one of his 78 RPM records directly to CD and handed me. And I learned the tune, and we got together at the Glenn Gould studio to do a live broadcast for CBC. And about half an hour beforehand, Jeff didn't like to rehearse, so I kept saying, "Jeff, can we try this tune?" He'd be like, "Don't worry, it'll be fine, it'll be fine." But half an hour before we went on, I finally convinced him to run it with me in the green room, and we discovered that he had printed the CD a semitone too fast. So I had actually learned it in A flat, and he was playing it in A. And Jeff, being the way that he was, said, "Oh, well, you're going to have to learn it down the, you're going to have to play it on my key." So I spent the next half hour freaking out, trying to figure out how to play an A major. And when Nathan and I decided to play this together today, he prepared it, and we started playing it, and I was in A, which is where I've played it ever since then. And he was in A flat because he learned it from the recording that I sent him.
I think you did the same thing
Which
to me
is
that Jeff did to you.
Yeah, exactly. I sent him the recording that Jeff gave me, and he learned an A flat. So Nathan, in this case, is being accommodating enough to come down to my key of A. So we're going to play it for you now. This is called The Wild Cat by Joe Venuti and Eddie Lang.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Nice, Nathan.
All right, something like that.
That's the second time we've played that one together, and again, that's the beauty of live jazz. And isn't it nice to be able to do something that is almost alive? So now we're going to follow that with a piece that Nathan and I wrote. We were in Mexico together about 10 years ago now, playing a music festival out there, and we had a really nice day hanging out, rehearsing up on this nice patio on the roof of the place we were staying, and I think maybe it was 7 or 8 p.m. and night was falling, and we were sitting up there drinking beers and listening to Eddie Lang and Joe Venuti on my tinny iPhone speaker. And Nathan went and grabbed his guitar, and we wrote this tune. And so we called it On the Roof.
Nice.
All right.
Up on the roof. Takes me right back.
Yeah, that was a fun night, actually.
Yeah.
As I recall, we were skipping a chamber music concert by some of our peers. We went to a bunch of the concerts, and at some point, I think we just wanted wanted to lay low and hang out and enjoy the nice
Mexican
warm weather.
beer.
Enjoy the watery Mexican beer and the nice warm weather. So we're going to play a ballad now, and this is a tune that's quite associated with Venuti. He wrote it, and it was purchased from him, and lyrics were written to it. But if you want to go and look him up playing this tune, there's a great recording of him playing it along with Adrian Rollini, the great bass sax player, and Eddie Lang. And I believe there may have been a pianist on that recording. I now can't think of it. But it's called, it was called Little Buttercup when it was written. And then once the lyrics were written to it, it was recorded many more times under the name I'll Never Be the Same, which is how you may have heard it if you have heard it before. Thank you. That was I'll Never Be the Same or Little Buttercup. I think we're going to play another Venuti Lang tune, duo tune. So these are worth looking up. Wildcat and this next one that we're going to play are from a series of tunes that Joe Venuti and Eddie Lang recorded together. Again, they were both quite successful as sidemen, and really they played with a lot of great musicians, famous musicians. So if you hear string sections, they are led by Venuti from the sort of swing era and early jazz era. So these guys, they had opportunities to do a lot of recording, which was harder then than it is now. But we're lucky that we have so many recordings, especially considering how young Eddie Lang was when he died. There's a lot of recordings of his playing. So this is one that involves a trick that I like to do. If you've seen me live, you've probably seen me do this. I do love to do this. And this is a trick of Joe Venuti's. I don't know if he invented it, but I certainly didn't. And he does this from time to time, and it's one of those things that for years I would listen to these records and go, how is he doing that? And I finally just spoke to somebody that had seen him play in Toronto, and they sort of described it to me in a way that allowed me to figure out what had been going on. So what I'm doing here is that I am taking the pin out of the end of my bow, and I'm releasing the frog of the bow, and releasing the horsehair that's attached. And this allows me to thread the bow over the strings of the instrument and play all the strings at one time. So I'm going to do this trick in the middle of this tune, and you'll see it. So stay tuned for that. This is a tune called Black and Blue Bottom by Joe Venuti and Eddie Lang.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
Thank you very much. That was Black and Blue Bottom by Joe Venuti and Eddie Lang. So while I reassemble my bow, I should say that we have reached the end of our concert. We're going to play one more song. But before we do, I would really like to thank a number of people. First of all, everybody at the Kincardine Summer Music Festival, and John and Victoria for putting this together. I I really have to say that for musicians, it's been a weird and a tough time, not only because of financial reasons, but because we miss playing. We like this, and it feeds us, and hopefully it feeds you as well. So we are really thrilled when we encounter organizations that are going out of their way to try and find ways of continuing to put on concerts despite the reality of the situation that we're all living in. So thank you so much for putting this together and for having us. Thanks as always to Nathan, a longtime musical collaborator of mine who I value more every time we play together. And thanks to you for watching, for tuning in, and for supporting music by watching, by paying attention, by continuing to engage. And in fact, if you would like, and if you're enjoying this, and if you would like this kind of thing to continue, we urge you to also support monetarily. You can support the Kincardine Summer Music Festival directly with a tax-deductible donation through CanadaHelps.org, and I'm sure that they'll be posting that information on their website as well. So we really do encourage you to support the organizations that support us and support all of us in our love for music and keeping things going. I'll also say that we've got a lot of projects on the go, despite the fact that we've been shut down in terms of playing live music. Nathan and I are playing live through this platform with a wonderful singer named Alex Pangman on the 1st of every month. The next one will be through the YouTube live stream platform, so it'll be a live performance on August 1st. The first Saturday of every month. That's correct, not the first of every month. And thanks, Nathan. And so you can come and check that out if you'd like to see us play again with a wonderful singer. I have a string quartet concert with my quartet, the Venuti String Quartet, named after Joe Venuti, through Harbourfront Center, and a couple of other live streams that are still available. I think Nathan's been quite busy as well. So if you're interested, you can look us all up on the internet. You can look us up on Facebook, and I'll be posting some links along with this video. So we're going to finish with a tune that I love to sing, and this is a song called Tea for Two. We're going to start with the beautiful verse, and I encourage you to go, if you like this song, to go and look up the Stefan Grappelli and Django Reinhardt version of this tune, which is my personal favorite rendition. Here it is, Tea for Two. Oh, I'm discontented with homes that are rented, so I have invented my own. Darling, this place is a lover's oasis, where life's weary cares are unknown. Far from the lights in the city, where flowers pretty caress the stream. So cozy to hide in, to live side by side in. Don't let it abide my dream. Picture you upon my knee, just tea for two and two for tea, just me for you and you for me alone. There'll be nobody near us to see us or hear us, no friends or relations on weekend vacations. We won't have it known we own a telephone. Oh dear, day will break and you will wake and start to bake a sugar cake for me to take, for everyone to see. We will raise a family, a girl for you and a boy for me. Can't you see how happy we could be? as a family, a girl for you and a dog for me. Can't you see how happy we could be? Thank you very much.